Good morning, Geshe-tabke, Ginla, Tashidale, and good morning, Katrina.
How it is?
Just Losar is coming up, and that would be an auspicious time to make an offering to Geshe-tabke and also to our translator.
Those
Those online, check our chat box. Like to participate in that. So we'll begin with our morning prayers. Teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one thus gone, the foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower the world's supreme guide to beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans, you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and sped supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With your body's form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn, Mount Meru, Portland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddha,
Dixon again.
Oh, this one. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the story. 这样记住，罗贝英年纪，这来送个多，哎呀，干送的是呢，来年就得拿做些事，来年就得拿做些，等你三百当这些，三百一就来年的，这一六当哪个来事了？我先送不到，他当的不到，空了嘛就写不能写着，因为。只当困在不灵的，真正身边几天看不了，长个药嘛都他也不得。但在不灵的得不得，长线吧的，他做的把钱呢写出来啊，打来几个人是，当不，几早些去我不去哦，这是，但对可能呀，就要嘛的，可能到不的就要嘛的，哦，真的去哦这是，哦，这了点呢，我不刚个人做团去几个人是。可能月不的，现在我不讲个月不的，绝对是月不的。那绝对是从俺中国把它三个用，每个通个用嘛的。那从通出去，我把三出去出，用不的是打来接受了。说是俺那月不去，说是可能出通用不的就是有了。打来几个的是，你就现就点的长嘛可制造个，告诉月呢，让可能出通用不的是有了。打来叫啊是。现在叫我是哦呀，往久了说吧，让我都准备就现在听这个，你可出几本叫的也是，现在叫我是的话，你个来叫我是大先你个来叫我的也是，记不把它这就是记不把想，大概的记录现在有耳朵，哦，这是讲的啊，大来就现在就你个来叫的也是了，我其实当到。자르왁스라 경pen바스 교황같이 매래 좀데 매스 친디 짱짱거리나 tin데 그래서 tin데 주대 쇼라 틀에 경pen바스도 교황같이 될래 좀데 투수요 말해서 자르문과 팽샤바 친디 지부게 대화다 tin데 그도달 배우레스 그러와 달래만 샬면 님에 주밀에 껴서도 그러나 가둘 중으로 성계수요 말에 mabja ge chongdao zuzu ning chenpo kandre do drama da chen tangge su yo mara koran su rangshin gi chobare gyuge yo mara sema da chi nombu zuzu yana kashe chen nombu shivden re do me do zuzu drama da do koran su ta yo mara ma do gyu yo mara se de yo ra gyumi le kya was o tezu kanga mara standa di nal kondu zön de chi na ko ne sumbe kapsun jikten ten ba se kapsu she sarwa Oh, that is a cargo condition or a tale mare, shell mare, nigger mare, cumulative mare. And a correlate in a show or a Q or Marvesina, number in a Q or a Lelangitan Nazo Chiesera. Kansa, Soso Kertan, Chibaki, Lesane, Luda, Nada, Yijicone, Gewada make a less of qualitene. And it is some of the trouble God is, Lelangitan Nazo Chies. Oh, yeah, this is on here.
So here, as the master Vasubandhu has said in his Abhidharma Kosha, from karma arise the varieties of the world, the various types of world. And so there is that which is intention and that intended by that. Intention is mental karma and that intended karma of body and mind. So here, according to the Buddhist system, there are infinite world systems. They're beyond our count, and they arise, all of the various varieties within the world, the environment, and the beings within it come forth from karma. So here, as it relates to those things that we have been discussing before, how these come about is a question. So for certain systems, like the Samkhyas, for example, they assert that there is like a primal substance, this thing that is permanent, that is uncaused, that has always been, and from which everything arises. So all things are contained within that, and they sort of manifest. We're able to see them and perceive them, and then they go back into that primal substance. So they assert a kind of self-arisen. The world, the environment, and the beings within it all arise from this prime substance that then is like everything is already contained within it. It's self-arisen in that it's uncaused, not arising from some other sort of cause. And there are those then that assert that the world and the inhabitants within it arise from another. They are caused by another, like say Ishvara or Brahma or some kind of deity that brings forth the world, a cause that is another. And then there are some who assert that there's both kind of self-arisen and arisen from the power of a deity. For example, the Chebuas, I think those are the Jainas, or particular schools that assert that there is both the sort of power of, say, a deity as well as a kind of self-arisen sort of quality. And then there are those that assert that there is no kind of cause for the world. The Charvakas, the sort of hedonists, they assert that there is no karma, cause, and effect. Their name is actually sort of like propelled far. They're far away from virtue because they assert that we should just focus on this life, what we can see, getting as much, enjoying as much as we can within this life. And when we look at things like, say, peacock feathers, the beauty of a peacock feather, we can't point to any sort of cause. They say that's just the nature of it to have such beauty. Or like the various colors of flowers, you can't point to a particular cause, but instead they say it's just the nature of those things. They're uncaused. And so when it comes to explaining how the world, the environment, as well as the inhabitants within it, here in Vasubandhu's Abhidharmakosha, responding to the sort of how does this arise, it is explained that the varieties of the world come about due to karma, the sort of common or shared karma of beings, as well as their unique individual kind of karma, brings about all of the varieties, all of the things within the world. And so it's not from any of those four causes, but rather, as is explained here, it arises from karma.
뭐야? 레렌 지된 나서 계시라. 때네. 지된 나서 세대 뇌진 지된다 심전진 지된 시거라. 그런도 대서 이제 물리 사체들 지신 나서 메탈 소바 추다 소바데서 뇌진 지된 시거라. 심전진 지된 시도 될 롱전gen 그 소자 미당 등들 소바 될게 심전게 강가려 심전진 지된 시거라. 뇌진 지된다 심전진 지된 시. 롱제자근 지된 시도 롱제바보 될 배주 신경답 될려 지된이 와라. 건지된 지대서야 돼. 깨지긴 지바 지요래서. 아니 님베도 비야티 양답바시 말에 타르투 버시 말에 티 방자리스티 돈네 텔레락벤네 진지데. 지대 멤버와 답배 신금다. 텔레락벤네 주의 심정이나야. 다좀바다 상계로서 버틴데 공무토비야 요와. 잔디 양답바시 탑두시 말에서 돼. 깨지기 님베견지 봐서라. 님베도 비고 매버서고 에치레스마도 니터두 된데 말에서라. 레렌지 된나서 계시. 뭐들. 되는 sem바다 대체서. 아니 레스에데 컨트롤스 그래서나 서거라. 되네 레데네 sem바다 대체서. sem벨레다 삼벨레스 니용거라. Tene sembatans, sembeles. Teches, sembatechebe, sambeles, ora. Tanda sembeles, the semge samlutag, semge letters, ora. Kewata, Mikewata, Lumedangi Chavala, Tichegus upon Juchung, Sebachora, Teleles, ora. Sembe lesed. Legas Sambutang, and Bata, Panamata Karina, Tilpa, Shiba, the Susan Sempan, Juchung Genge. Shibashore, Telesembasore. O disembele setere. Nisembate sambele sete, Te Samlutana over Michelia, Tari Jabu, Tuxas Labgo, some transone avandro, Kane Tuxa Labgua, Tari Jabu, Nadanga Jesson and the Tradoshan as a Karina Tichiora. O Tidi Sambele, Ludangagi letter. Kunlun semdigi samlutane ne kana keji shayada luji cholam tanyata otelia sambeles gora. Sembati chebe sambeles. Tonda lunga gile. Zodosuna shichani luji kone kari kanu kana keji shesemdechi to shuchi shero hotis lere. Sambeles etera. Sembelede semgi kunlo koltat kari kabgusam. Trato chegusam roa. Tiyahu medusam. Ngatan randa chivindig medusam gyora. Trato tan drensim ta karine ta yamoto sigora. Oh, desha. Tene sembatan teches, ledele ni orese. Sembele dan sembatisce be sambelunga gile ni orese ora. Tene sembatan teches. Ya, ore.
So here, then, as it says in Vasubandhu's quote, this verse from Abhidharmakosha, from karma arise the varieties of the world. And when we talk about the sort of world, we are speaking both of the kind of beings within it, those living beings, as well as the external environment, that kind of external world made up of various, the ground and the mountains and the flowers and the trees and so forth, as well as those who enjoy that world, the animals and the humans and those beings who make use of that. So when we talk about the sort of world, and here again, the particular kind of word that is used in Tibetan, the first syllable refers to jik, disintegrating, something that is not stable. It's disintegrating moment to moment. And this is thereby something that we can apply an antidote to. When we talk about the sort of world, it's not something that is fixed. There are also systems like, for example, Pure Lands, where we can be born surrounded by arhats and Buddhas and bodhisattvas and so forth. But this kind of world, and in English, the word maybe doesn't convey the exact same thing, but this is something that is disintegrating moment to moment, and to which we can apply a particular antidote in order to escape this kind of system being driven by karma. So here, as Vasubandhu's verse continues, it says, so from karma arise the varieties of the world, and that which is intention, and then that intended by that. Intention is mental karma, and that intended is karma of body and mind. So here, when we talk about these two types of karma, we can talk about the intention, the sort of thought, the motivation. When we think, oh, I want to do this good thing or bad thing, whatever it is, that acts as a cause for us to engage in various actions. So that itself is karma, that intention. And then those actions that are intended by that, when we are saying motivated thinking like, oh, I want to fight with this person, oh, I'm really prideful, I want to put this other person down, say something mean, those kinds of actions of body and speech that are then motivated by our particular intention. What we say and what we do based upon that intention is then the intended karma. So when we are motivated by an affliction and say we want to fight with someone, like throw stones at them or say harsh words, that is intended karma versus the intention, the sort of thought that precedes that, the motivation that comes. So here, the two types of karma are identified as that which is sort of mental karma, the intention, and that intended by that, the karma of body and mind, or sorry, of body and speech.
This one. Then Semba Yiji lay in this era. Semba said, and the Samlutane. Chawa Sambu Chilinandra, Chawa Namba Chinandra, Chawa Parma Keva, the Miguel Kaima, Chawa Inandra, Telan Jugu, Samsang Yiji Sheba Nimdo, Chawa Delan Juba Sembe, Juchu Gang Semba Chitua, Sheba Chitua, or the Semba Sawara, Semba Yiji lay in this. Yiji Namshidan Sundenge, Namdo Yungengi, Chawa Sambudan, Namba Parma, and Juchu Gang Sheba Telasiguara, Semba Yiji lay. Take you Ludan Agile, Sambe lady, take Kunalambe. Lunga ki le ni butele sigre sara lunga ki chawatele toya yuba connection tatu do conduction is kitchen drum the carson lugin nam du de so chebe nam du drum de tene yich toya do hotel sigara o tinde tatini ga luda nga ki le ni bute semge samlutani gudwa lunga ni bute ko tire ke sobo ke semge 가르치스네 teaching 마도치 코코랑 장신기 수치하게 와 말도 그놈이 그날라네 느껴지 셔야다 릉하게 주고 상에 되는 거 알아. 그래서 고조대 semre도 sheba de rete doa. Lelen jikten na zoji, simba les nenda, sims nenda, simki zochi doa. Pena nga zo karsora. Nge son son kin jikten de chashagi na. Kambu nga samsa samlo ke. Ane chakdang ki samlo chike. Tele tene ane lunga ki miki wa chuti yungo no. Shenji so cheba ta, shenji nor rangi wangwa cheba ta, machimba lemba ta, loyim ta. Rwa ane tsuni chama chiksuba. Napsin nasim la soba, miki wa chuti yungo dowa. Tesu kanga de shebe samlo tani yungo wara. Miki wa chuti le tene nyawa yida tenru li kiki dowa. Miki wa chuti nane sab cheshu de ina nyawa li ki. Dringa chi nane yida che ne tenru tindri li kiki wara. Sako le tene kiku dowa. So le kulungi miki wa samlo tani miki wa chuti ngonde chuti le tene ngeson li kiki dowa. O tate yago medo sam ngeson la maji kuyo samne. Yan samlo tani lada mili kiku samne. Miki wa chu pa kewa chu tu tindri cheni le saso na lada mili kiki dowa. Tendu lada mili jikden di ganga di susu le sawa le tene kiku dowa. So lelen jikden na so kesi. Oh yeah, o di chulana.
So, as it says, then intention is mental karma. And then that intended by that is the karma of body and speech. So the kind of intention we have, whether it is a good intention, a bad intention, or sort of neutral intention, the consciousness that has that thought that thinks, oh, I'm going to do this, or I want to do this, that is intention, karma that is intention. And then that intention can motivate various actions of our speech and our body. So things that are visible to others, like when we say words, when we get in a fight with somebody, or when we do some kind of visible action with our body. So those actions follow after an intention. We don't sort of do things without that kind of motivation that brings it about. So here, when we are talking about the kind of karma, mind then is the main thing, is the primary thing. So here again, when we're talking about intention, the sort of intentional karma is that kind of mind wanting to do something together with the sort of mental factors that think, oh, I want to do this. And that then leads to the kind of actions of speech and body that are what we would call intended karma. And so here, when we talk about the sort of the mind being main or primary, when we think of like the three lower realms, for example, we first give rise to a thought of I, and then there's a kind of attachment to that I. And out of that attachment, we're motivated, say, to engage in various non-virtuous actions, like killing, taking another person's life, or stealing in order to have what we want, engaging in sexual misconduct, or lying, or saying harsh speech, and so forth, covetousness, and all of those kinds of non-virtues. So those non-virtues, motivated by those various minds, are what create rebirth in these various realms. The sort of heaviest karma leading to rebirth in the hell realms, middling in the sort of hungry ghost realm, and lighter in the realm of an animal. And based upon reflecting on that our non-virtuous actions are going to lead to such rebirths, we can think, oh, I want to engage, I want to avoid that. So then engage in positive actions in order to lead to a rebirth as a human or a god. So this is the way in which mind is primary in terms of creating the various worlds.
Oh yeah. Oh, de so simjen so lula sobara pena mapje rechine mapje trondo pe chishin damanda che yabuchi gdo. Oh, tezu kansa so lugi chashela soba tezu samate so tumu maimbe rang lele teni keware segora. Ta tumu ge longcha cha zishin na zela soba chula soba jikden kamgro medola soba da longcha cha. Oh, tezu samate tumu ele keware. Debe simjen dele kenge sodan tada yeshin bata maamba na yongjo da tezu sangma ge tumu ge lesa bal tani kegora. Che te sonzan zambulin di ngara zo mirere wangire se tira tumu ge lesa ni kegyosa michi le wangi marese nangbe chuchene ngema shigeba na lyongdo. Gebu kurang ngale wangi yo samdi kanga mitu zo ngaye yokbu Nemeshi Sajakanga Samgu or the Timarisera. The Timug long chachas, Timug lel to Kangal Wangi Sigorna. Sako Timug long chacha. Tidunganzu Sashipiki Tandusan, Nejiji, Zishin Zella Soba, Medola Soba, Nimandola Soba, Zebe Chayaga Chakarina, Tiapuna, Sunam Saga Yusigora. Karas and Garazula Wame Chayora, Garazu Chibula de Wangi Omarte, Nanzula Tiwami Chayora, this one they appear. Sunam Sagi order. Oh, the Inducaso. Timu will add a Timu might be less sociora. Oh, teaching or the teacher Lana, yeah.
So the bodies of various beings, the individual kind of beings, come from their individual karma. So, for example, like the various colors on the feathers of a peacock come from its own individual karma, the sort of bodies that we have. Whereas the things that we enjoy, the kind of common environment, the various plants and flowers and trees and so forth, that comes from common karma, from the kind of shared karma that we as beings have completed or have accomplished in the past, that then leads to this environment that we mutually enjoy and share. And so in this way, we can't sort of think that just one person has sort of authority over that or has control over that environment. It's actually sort of all of our shared environment. We all sort of in common have power, have authority over this environment, in that we all are shared in creating it. So for example, when we imagine offering this whole universe, imagine offering in the form of a mandala, this entire sort of the four continents together with the sun and the moon and so forth, we can make that sort of offering because we are partly the owners of this. This partly belongs to us. And that in that way, we can gain a great deal of merit by making that kind of offering. But the environment that we as beings have is a shared environment, and thereby we all sort of have some kind of stake in it or some kind of control over it. It belongs to all of us.
Oh yeah, what do you do though? Nesosum like Kechigilete, Migueotelia, Sonam Maimbe Lesgra. And the Lada Miliki Kevele to Zula Sonam de Lesgua. Oh, Tilitani Kigdoa. Tene, Dangam Sura, Tandangazo, Dangam Baroa. That's Sungam Suchiara, Tezo Latusure, some day Tambuniba Sumbasero, Su Shindu Zebana Nichi, Niji Shindu Yabu Genge, or Sungam Saya, kind of Shiora, some day Tambuniba Sumba Shiba Seriora. Oh, there's a thing in the Combalatani Kiore. Some day Tambu things in Niba things in Sumba things in Taramabucho, the Combalatan and Teleke less of Yora. Oh, the Telia. Sungam Behali Kichina, Yating the Loga Loga Comeyore, Sungam Neri Chudu said Yora, Mabuyor, the Shemoche. And then Sungmi Gilasia, Sobu Menge Latin de Yore, things the casual net again, Sobu Man at Tetumgala. Tell us Sungmi Gilasia, I think the Combalatin Kiore. Or to consul less I had Mikiwa Chupa, Kiwachu, Tesam Pengioma, things in the chair, Kurum Sheche, Chair Tolewangi Kiora. O ti le te le miu e le se gore. Miu e le se rara kando keji ki tingi ji ti ra te le drebu mingi ma do shenda paso duye yo mare. Denga ba tende ne mile keji ki le da la le keji ki le ra to ya ka she la le ke ma mi che mi to le mi ndo tende paso to duye yo re. Tanda to miu as. Rara timu mai be le ti ra sa ma do shenda drebu mi yo mare. Samdengi Sungam Sigra, Sumi comes, Dungam comes Mura, Marazun Dungam Roa, Ni Sungam Sidu, Latosul, some day Tambuni was some Shiba said, the Quabarada, Lanjidel and Devil Hamar, Quaba like it, so Sumi last year, or Tezulia, Dungam Sungam Sumi comes some doa, or Tezukanga Lelitani Kigres of Gora, ya, Dingingi, come to the less Agiora, Matili Keku someday. You don't know the thing is come in the less on the get to your door. Oh, yeah, didn't
No. So then the kind of karma that leads to rebirth in sort of the lower realms is non-meritorious karma. Those kinds of negative actions we do will lead to rebirths in the lower realms, whereas virtuous actions, positive actions, can lead to a rebirth as a human or a god in the realm of the desire realm, as we call it. And within the desire realm, again, there are rebirth as human. In the lower realms, the rebirth as a human, rebirth as a desire realm god. And then there are, on top of that, the form realms, wherein one has a kind of a nice environment, and this includes the four meditative concentrations, and these come about due to meditating on developing certain meditative stabilizations that then lead to rebirth as a form realm god in one of these kinds of concentrations. And even beyond that, there are then the formless realms, where one again is born in such a situation. This comes about due to the development of a particular kind of meditative stabilization. And so these that sort of karma is called unmoving or unvariable, in that it's only going to ripen in a particular rebirth, in that particular sort of meditative concentration, or say in one of the meditative stabilizations of the formless realm. So there are those kinds of karmas that are variable. One say could ripen as when one is born as a human, or could ripen when one is born as a god. Whereas these kinds of karmas, when one has this sort of intention and develops a particular meditative stabilization, it will only lead to that particular kind of rebirth. So here, the three realms, again, this is the desire, the form, and the formless realms, are all then created by mind, by karma. All of this arises from karma. Again, when we have a particular rebirth in, say, the form or the formless realms, it is based upon developing a particular meditative stabilization that was preceded by the thought, like, oh, I'm going to generate this particular kind of stabilization. And so thereby, all of the three realms are generated or come from mind.
Oh yeah, that in the to some of the similar thing or less, they could simply say, so the lele tension is, yeah, similar tension is, the Nichibarwa, Lelenchi, then not so you ten a sympathetic, sympathy let you dang. So the similar tension. Kananga Tome Maribukune last with the Tezukanga Korva, Koi and the Kotendriana Chuni Kone Korgu Yora. Tome Mariba Sidu, Na Samsakolongan Zidiki Gudwa, Dear Kosimbata, and in Yamonium doing Gura Shiba de Dora. Even to say less to take any le, Gawadam Megawa Loma de Tezulba Sembarchege less Agdwa, dear le Shiba de Doa. And Sumba Namshes leg never the Namshek to Shagodoa. Namshe never the Nyash Tegdo and Rebuki Bado. Namshetilla, Sumba Namshe de Shiba de Doa. That in a Sumba Namshe leg in Nevatelia, in a Sebada Lembani de Sutap Gora, Sutap Syria, never chimbo. Madu Sabin Shingla Sabin Tamtele Chulu Banashia. Chuda to the never chimboya, get you Rahotinasi. Nazu Geba Seba Kuba Lembasigua, or the Seba Tambutoma Mindor Seba Sora. So Chigalamurina, Luda the Madrena, Samsa Lula Seba Yongura. And the Tamateliata, Shandachi, Jolan Chetoya Yosho, Saya Yosho, Chit, there Yosho was some sandwich. Yaseba Chingudua. Lembasigua, or Seleni with the Shebare Dora Lele, certain gig in your mother de doa. And it Juba Sibe less, Sebada Lembani de Nuba Tujan to Sibe less, Juba Siba, stay lady de doa. And it was by Jawas chair. That good and the true that you are, debut and the true chet and the Yala Junior. Kina and the true de Kanga Shebada, Kinde so Sigdoa. And it's choose by chaos to Kawada, debut and the Rura. Mindabjane, she was being soon about Kitchen to whatever, Timbatsora share. And a Gashichi reverses, Tezukanga, debut and the Redua, or Tezusama, Tamjede, Shibalten Yongore, Lelet and Yongoda, so. Teenage someday sung me to less on the devil can Yagumedu and Sungambe Halikena, high ne Lu Longelas of what prisms of what in the Kiri. And in your more rapper mina sing is somebody but the Zukanga Yomare, Sim Depe, Sim Yabu Pita Buddha, Tangarazul to the Raba. Namdo Dram and Mabu Mangeshua. And then Nugin Jitan Pe Yabu, Telican Yabu do something. They Tom do with Sembeni, things you come Giora. Didn't she come should do? Oh, the consider let the son come Kikuto, Season Summer, let any give a race. Let any sebare. Shibare de ora. Did the woman you work up in the Songudwa? Woman you work up so Taki Shangi Niga Cumili Kyoto's Paka, the car said, and it a caress the sim Latin care. Comes within a Simzamo said, Simzam race said, Tondati Maris, comes somebody, and a Simgi so Chucha Kevore to that race ora. Umaju work up so. Simyakin is Simjan Jigdanda Sigdwa. Simyakin is Simjan Jigdanda. Simjan Jigdanda, Nugin Jigdan Sigurdo. Simyakin is Simjan Jigdanda, Nugin Jigdan, Shindu Nazongo. Sim Gilatene, Sim Latene. Simjengi Jigdanda, Nugin Jigdan, Ramada Naso, what they can give a Resongora. Simyakin is Simjan Jigdanda, Nugin Jigdan, Shindu Nason Gurs. Not so by I gave her Chevres, Tezultan Chungu or Esagora. Simikin is Simjanji, the Nugin, then she do not so. Draw Malu Lele gave her songs. On Droag sang Sama, Nuju sang it, Keva sang Sama, this also less about than Kiri or Esagora. Draw Malu Lele gave her songs. Simban and Leja Yuma is a Simpan and Leja Yomaris. Just a sim sword, that turned out to do Shana. Leji Cheban, Simji Chebar, so Simgi. Sim Sangbuch and Le Sangbusan, Sangbucha to the Ungore, Sim Gambach and Gambecha Chen, Tungele Soba Gambecha de Ungora. The Indico Cheba Bodeta Simre, Nambasangi Bachena. Sawe Roba Ranga Kiwa Sange condition I had, so Simgi Gamba Lesa about the Teleton Yongora. Nugin Jide condition Sange condition long check in a so lesa about the Tene, till a long checker. Nugin Jigden, the Simja de long checker. Yagada doa da tindresun za diko soso kewada dikba dan rewa chi kore. Namba sanje bo soso didu de soso le sange wanga yongur mado soso le sange le mado shenda jig didu jinye da chaya da tindre yo mardo. O ti inde tanda su tu shana kamsam bude ne semza mo ose. O ngarazu ganga yongsa de semla ten yongu doa lele ten yongu doa. O ya. Mardo che.
So here, all of this arises then from karma. As the verse from Vasubandhu says, from karma arise the varieties of the world. And when we are referring to karma, we're really referring to a mental kind of process, a mind, a consciousness. So first, we have the kind of ignorance, that fundamental grasping at an eye, and then motivated by that, we engage in various actions. So looking at the kind of 12 links, we have first the kind of ignorance, which is a mind, which is a consciousness, and dependent upon that, we then engage in karmas, those various sorts of motivations, and then the actions that are motivated by that, the conditioning factors that are then the second link. And then we have the kind of consciousness, the consciousness on which those imprints are laid down. And in turn, the ripening of those kinds of imprints that have been laid down on that consciousness are dependent again on kind of mental processes. So karma is like ripened or sort of fostered, brought to fruition by the 8th and 9th links of craving and grasping. It is due to that kind of craving, that sort of desire to have something, and that grasping, that's sort of an intensification of that we then engage in, that we then are brought to the sort of ripening of the 10th link of existence, and then we have birth, and then aging and death. And here in this way, when we look at the 12 links of dependent origination, we can see that there are 6 causes and 6 effects that we can identify. So the causes being ignorance and conditioning factors, then that consciousness, and independence upon that, there's then name and form, the 6 sense bases, and we can identify those as being the sort of results. And then you have contact and feeling, craving, then craving and grasping are causes that then lead to becoming here, sorry, not existence, becoming, and then birth, and in dependence upon that, you have aging and death. And so here, it's from the kind of mental processes, this consciousness mind, that all of these 12 links go into functioning. So here, this emphasizes the importance of mind. So for example, again, when we look at the way that the 3 realms, all of it comes about from karma. For example, with the form and the formless realms, someone looks at the kind of afflictions of the desire realm, the nature of the desire realm, and thinks about the sort of defects of that, and wishing to gain something higher than that, something more peaceful, something that they see as being superior. They then give rise to the intention, thinking, I want to develop this kind of meditative concentration that will lead to rebirth in such a place. And so the karma then is that intention, as well as that which is motivated by that. So here, when it comes to the kind of understanding that Buddhists have about what is the cause of the external world, the environment, and the inhabitants of it. Again, in Chandrakirti's entry to the Middle Way, when he has refuted then the sort of production from the 4 extremes, he gives this verse that explains that the mind itself is the source of the 3 realms. So here a sort of rough translation of this is from mind itself are put forth the many varieties of worldly beings and the worldly environments. It is said that beings without exception are born from karma. Abandoning mind, there is no karma. So here, the creator, the mind is the creator. When we have a sort of good mind, a good positive intention, we engage in good actions, which then lead to good results. Whereas if we have a kind of negative mind and negative actions, that's going to lead to a suffering result. So all of our happiness and suffering is created by the mind. Good and bad and our suffering and happiness are not things that someone else, say, gives to us or is created by a god and is somehow bestowed upon us, but rather whatever it is that we experience, whatever it is that we enjoy within the world, that we possess, and those sorts of things, all of this has a connection to mind in that it comes about from karma. So again, none of our happiness or suffering, the environment that we live in, is given or bestowed by some other sort of creator, but rather it comes about from karma, and karma really is referring to mind.
Oh yeah, the doctor da. Daji chawa tuji sim tambu de sosonga so rama shibuchi yoban jimbe samlu de tuna shingi sim resi yora. Tele tene ne kondo danga ye chadang chado le sobo tezu sama tugi sim nashir nyamu be tusi gdo. Tu desu de soson neba jenge de le tusi yora. Ngazu tusi de shendaji katang chawa zi shendaji yobe samlu ko tigi neba chebi shirachi namdo samma dil neba de chesi tenge yomara. Ngaranzo de sem dege ngazo kanga chubo musum tongdo jambuli de na la mi sem chu de mi kaje segdo ral tu kaje nyangdo nanda chemdo de ngone ne ba kengere de do jeje ko sem de ngazo sem de ne ba kenge de samtane de na shi sem pe do shu de re chunju le nge nam ji se ba kamsung na sem len ji ba shenga me se kamsung de le shena cha shu de kale she wo de mi sem le she wo de cha da Nanzo etan bamlu shigara, chanjal shigara, chanjal shida shayaka yomar, Koran kyu yung marwa. Migi lakba chan yune yungir mado, ko Koran rawandu chani yongyake yomara. Chayza ko mi sem de samlu tanda randa shen kanga pungli change, kongma mewa ne tanda maungba na pe duli change zo de sem rete towa. Tindi ko kamsu na sem lenjikba shen ka me shunjule. Sem duge chane samlu tanda de cha. Sem yakbu chane samlutana midabada tongba nida ani chambada nyingji da ro tanyum da chanju semla soba sangbu zu kanga semle deni yongora o tezul samlutana de ni sem de so yene mena ro nganzu semdi yakbo che sona soya yoba chire to rangshin ki ko sem ngemba cha rangshin re de no soya yo mar do choya yo marwa choya yo singora sem bi rangshin yo se ti chima nam ne luburu wa se sem khora tangma yakbo chi yo de se ina kombe wange ene khondro nga je cha to de se sem nyom be nyokwa che re rangshin nyokwa mare tangma tin de yo de singudwa ki sonza sanje ji ri yo se sembi rangshin we se chimane luboas nganzu kanga sanje na shin ge sanje ge tangbu sem na shin nganzu le yo ades nganzu chima cha kyo yar yende yar tan sanje jure yo se nangbe ta atire to nganzu tagbari shi khwa ba che tuja de tuja ran de sangbu rang ma ne tan de sangbu janje de kindre khelen yo ma ba sanje je ko ban thobar cha ge sang sar tan sangbu thar shin bo thoya yo ba khelen do o tinde samlu tan ya semle za sheshi yo mare di sara ga sungdo chupchi sara ga na karsara ode de dage di long dia cheso ode semde karsara ishin no de semla chasar sta tangma de chemaso semde ishin gi nobu na shi konde samman tamje chupchu ge de semde re sha se so semle so chache ge ade ya bu cheso na ode inde tinganzo namju samlutan de le de kadu ina samlutan de lesa de yora ane kane keje she paju suju chene lesa yora le kashe kewa sa yora kashe mige sa yora kashe kewa maru mige maru lume den se de chaware de yora jebun duga yung mare yaga ke yung mare tagas nga ju chamjang ros tagas tem ta sar doshana kewa de mige ke marwa oti sonda tonda nga ju sem de namju ne lesa sidu ngaranzu tonde de lesa de yora kange lesa ge yora sem bi samlutan de lesa ge yora le karichol samlutan ge do ti nganzu ha ko kora ge chol samlutan ge dona le ya busa ge me ge chol samlutan de me ge yora ge me ge kaya mai ge samlutan de luma de chol sem ba chi yora o tele tene ni lunga chawa tu sing ge yora ti de tabar shi lesa ge yora sosu maamba kariche mache de sosu samlutan jo cholam chedan ra le ge yosam tele tona che gu yarda o de ke shimbe mer ya ta de so manda so
So here then from this kind of first grasping at I, this grasping at a self, which we could actually liken to a sort of demon, some kind of, I don't know if that's the best word for it, but this kind of grasping at an I or a self is what leads us to all of our various afflictions. And so we have this kind of affliction, this demon of our afflictions, in that this is what really creates all of our troubles. The sort of, when we think of a demon or something, we might think of something with a big mouth and like fangs and things like that. But really, it's our own mind that we should be most sort of fearful of. The most sort of frightening thing in the world is our own mind. The kind of harm that it can cause is really beyond anything else. The sort of benefit that it can do as well. But the kind of harm that our minds create, like we might think that there's something like more scary or more frightening than this. But Shantideva has made it clear. He says that really the scariest thing is our own kind of mind. We might think something like a nuclear weapon, an atom bomb, like that's a really terrifying thing. Think how much destruction that could bring about. But really, it's only manufactured by the minds of humans and then deployed with our mind, with our intention to cause that kind of harm. So really, there's nothing more frightening than the mind. Those kinds of negative compulsions that we have, our afflictions, are things that can create the most kind of harm that we can imagine. And so too, when it comes to positive qualities, our mind is incredibly powerful. We have the ability to develop love and compassion and equanimity toward others and so forth. Our mind is not by nature bad, but rather it depends upon what we habituate ourselves to. As it is said, the nature of mind is clear light, the stains are adventitious. They don't penetrate its nature. Our mind is luminous. It's something that we have this Buddha nature. We have the potential to become fully enlightened if we make that kind of effort, if we turn our mind in that sort of direction. It's not as though the Buddha were enlightened from the beginning, but rather by working with and developing the qualities within his mind, he became a fully enlightened Buddha. So really, when it comes to our mind, there's nothing on the one hand that is more terrifying than that, and there's nothing that is more precious, more valuable than our own mind. We have this incredible potential if we actually take advantage of it. So the great adept Saraha has a verse, I don't remember the first line of it, but he says, I prostrate to this mind, my own mind, that is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. So we should recognize that this mind is something incredibly precious. And whenever we are thinking, whatever we are doing, we are creating karma. The kind of thoughts that we have are karma, the speech that is driven by those, the actions of our body that are driven by those. All of this is karma. And so we should recognize that if we continue to just sort of act driven by our afflictions, we're continuing in those sort of negative habits. But whenever we are sort of aware, we can see that our mind, whatever we are thinking or doing, I mean, sometimes say we're on vacation, we're just talking about whatever, it's kind of neutral karma that we are creating. Sometimes it's non-virtuous, sometimes it's virtuous. But from our mind, and as well as the actions of speech and body that follow from that, we are constantly creating karma. And so we should be attentive to that and also recognize that, like these quotes illustrate, our mind is something that is both quite terrifying as well as quite precious.
Oh yeah. What is on the road? In the castle. Chitanga to let him dress the co. Trash travel to the go you change talk out of that. Chitan le Sambuche and Drebu Sambu Yonata, Liang and Butch and Drebu and Bayonata, Musum to talk 2 years on order. Marado Rabat and the Mambo. Sendili Chashana, Mikashe. Tambune ko lobcho yapuche mi sangbuche ko yapuche ya sangbu yongye ko le san yapuche yarabche chundeche lobcho yapuche mi chiso samlu tangi chine ko yar chen kale chen chema debu yapu yongye ba thoye yora ti le ba thongje nyongju ngaru mi thongsal tira kashe mi duja sheje che mi karsere pombura chawe na ko chawe ngemba mambuche tijide chema ko ya tu bu yong sum de nyongye doga Sendiran le Sambuchen and Drebu Sambu Yada, Liang and Buchen and Drebu Yambu Yati, Rabon Gashimusum to Tokyo Sora. Oti Indico, Lelia, Tongjin Yuri Lese, Sendilin yon you le yore, Joachima de Lignon you le yore, Landran Shelling you, Mare Kinen yon Jursigra, Sendilin yon you lese, Joachima del Ralin yon Gedela, Joachima. Jolan and Yongo letter, Kinen Yon Jurse. That is somebody Kiva Sumba Shiba Kazi, Mount Banakazi, Kiva Landra, Landa, Tranga Shenda Shendal, and New Hag Leshe, Landra Shella, Yon Jubilesh, Sumba Budwa. Or did Tonjo Yu letter, Chidan de Zuta Yugudwa, when a Tonlam Brazil top, Tomban Yungusum Duto, and then Yamshalia, Tamata Batelia, and it Kasore. Chevala Sopata, Tende Ticene, Nosati Debu Cendilion Sigius, Trachum Batoba Dotinera, Chanjus and Kemataba. Nichamba Semida, Niji Semida, Tendecom con Kemataba, Tezulia, Nichena, Sambula Sobachena, Tindrebu, Tavarani Yoeda. Oh, Tinashing at the Tandona Mambusungua. Nyamba Sanje Chumden, the Tilamna, which take up the Santa. Sanje Chumden there, Yamangama Kyoshi Bekasura, Kwaba in Bekabla. Kelon Chicha, in Kelon de Chen, Kelon with them, Mamuj Pass to Truchu, the ends Truchu, Chambu Mavison. And it's over by Yalangan Sochi, but Sanje Chumden there, that you do can know that Sanje Marta. I think and then Kelon Shendachi, it's over the Kangan Dumchu. So this Dumbar Mawas, and as a Mitimba in a Mitimba, then Dumbar Mawas, and as a check where I'm going to say, and so tend to see Marwa, Soja Majimala lawyer, Jenny Tamasizu, Napsi Nursing, Lauda. 미팅바 시와라 미팅바디 시연에 뜻은 dumbar 시고라 가지고 남주네 군dum네 개와라 봐 통에 탑시 시고라 가지고 통에 탑시 마셔 거야 체로 땅에 탑시 체대라 dumbar 마와세 사kel로지게 바주 긴딩이 소 강가 초 틈바 체제 릭바셔 그래 긴디 틈바 셔to 그래 전에 고 마가래 산제 좀 된데 교화연계 결론대로 마가네 다고 뱀에게 저번에 뱀에게 시와체 손체라 뱀에 나시리 가게 선배 충조린 돈도셔라 증거리 또 그래 봐서 약부지 지오른 돈도셔라 뱀에게 저번에 뱀에게 시와를 채서서 공도 챔비티 라임버래 세대랑 그 레아사는 뱀에 조린시야요래 딘다시다 망부시야요노 더나려 nyungrumbaso nyama kebuto tsumuta tsul tangeto nyungrumbaso tato chenge ko teni kebande china ko kebe chawa meba che ko soshagyoare chawa chimbudo go soshagyoara ene ko tende cho nyungrumbaso yare ko kebe chawa chimbudo go sosara ande ko lang ngabjachi tendunge michitura lango ande karchi baase mara 가르쳐 놓으세요. 달랑도서 강가 가서래. 랑게 자와체 매버수 그랬다. 근데 매버수야 된도 그래. 근데 그 선배시라 교래. 고란들이 되어라. 근데 그 그시티 루이체 디강가 코서 먹어서 그 녀체 티체라. 티체는 그 라량 고란 개봉원에 있는 시 자와체 등거 차례세 요래. 또 통준용 주세. 근데 이 손자 레레야. 통해 쳐들래 녀안 좋아다 깨네 녀주다 렌데션래 녀주 겨만 부여도 어디 좀 알아서 남기네 또 나야 붙여오래 야 지치수는 마음도 쳤어 아니 되게 있잖아
So generally, then when we speak about karma, like the sort of intricate details of karma are something that are extremely hidden. We're not able to know the particular, until Buddhahood, know the particular cause that leads to a particular result. That's something that is beyond our understanding. But we can see generally that karma, like a bad action will lead to a bad result, and a good action will lead to a good result. So there are some sort of examples of being able to see that the sort of karma ripen within one life in a way that we can see. So here we can see that someone say for example works really hard, studies hard, puts in all kinds of effort and gains certain accolades. They achieve certain things based upon those sorts of causes. Or we can see like someone who behaves badly, acts in a bad way, and they end up having to face the consequences. They are called out for that, or they are sort of made to face the consequences for what they have done. So there are those sorts of karmas, those actions that we can see in terms of being able to see the results over the course of a single life. But there are those kind of actions that are going to ripen in future lives. It said that there are those kinds of actions that will ripen directly in our next life, and then there are those that will be in lifetimes after that. So here, when it comes to karma, there are those that we can see directly that will ripen in a single life. Like for example, if one is say to achieve the path of seeing, it's possible that one can achieve the result of an arhat within a single lifetime, or by cultivating the four immeasurables, gaining the kind of power that comes from developing those four immeasurables over the course of one life. So here there's a story, and I'm not sure that I quite got all of it, but the Buddha was before actually becoming a Buddha. So this would be in the sort of Jataka tales, the previous lives of the Buddha, in a situation where there was a lot of strife between the various kind of monks. There was disharmony in the community, and when there is a kind of that sort of nature of disharmony, one wants to create harmony. One wants to bring people together and be able to sort of talk in a way that will cause there to be harmony rather than not. And so here. Part of this sort of sangha, and he was more like interested in creating the kind of strife rather than pacifying it, than trying to be harmonious. And so here Gen di dung di yapo gotsumason.
Oh.
Dung di sangye kiram ngamagi di yapo gotsumason.
Kagede.
Tama di sangye ngamagi.
Kelonje jesede. Ale. Oh, de sanje loba lamje nega susungara.
No.
Kelon jode re sera. Kelon jone ko kelon gindu gete pa su chuchu ne na lo tu ne chuba chembo la chu yare. Oh, te la chu ne ne ya kelon shenda jege. Gindu ge in segro, gindu mitumba su pa dum ju bare, tun ju bare, geje sheche. Oh, te chene ne dum jang ko kaba ma chung re. Oh, ko peme na shin re se, samba chung ju che re segora. Tanda yakbo chuba di yakbo jabu ran do she yora. Ko peme ge chaba di peme ge shewar che so se. Pomo jo ge chaba di pomo jo shewa na shi che re se. Kelon gang pomo na shi re do do che re. Tinde namsan shigo ma re samba chung ju che ma ran do do che ra. O te cheba le tane te kondre ko ne o ne ko tinde ko atam ne kora sete ran peme do jora re che re. Tambo kelon parwa. Ta kelon ma re sa re. Deso e.
No.
Aya o dese. Tiko le tsap chimbu sabe kejere kindungi tengi tobje. Le tsap chimbu sadu zang tongju nyungju le tende nyungu le sigara.
Ale.
Ten kebari zang kindungi terawa. Oti truti tibo chimbu chigira. Tsamiki le sigara. Oh yeah.
Okay, so here then again for an example of the kind of karma that we can see, so this is during the time when the Buddha was still in training. He was a monk, and there was a kind of there was strife and disharmony within the sangha. And again as again, the Buddha was not yet fully enlightened. And so during this time, he was sort of continuing to carry on this strife. And the sort of language of this is maybe not what we would use today, but sort of in a way that was like kind of small-minded, like a woman. And so there was another monk that sort of said, if you continue to carry on like this, it's going to lead to a really bad result. And so again, when one is part of the Sangha, having that sort of schism, trying to continue to create that schism rather than create harmony. Apparently the Buddha, again, while it's still in training, because of that sort of attitude, changed to being a woman. That kind of karma ripened immediately in a way that was able to be visible because of the sort of gravity of the karma.
Oh yeah, tatanda les sambul tene ra. Sambuda ngembal tene ngemba yengu yoba. So de lesam simdi keshambu imba samluta. Ningaranzo karsoda. Toma migi achupa. Kya chutum nengandu lami koban tobarche. Tele jayata samba sanruta. Dame badala soba. Chamba chambela soba komde. Tarva tobache. Tele jan samba samrutane. Dagbe shenji be chanju chodo semkene. Ani sanje ji koban tobarcha nyam. Tichedo. Ani chonyegi san kuno setan de sembar shosi ha.
So, with the kind of recognition that our good and bad karma is what creates our future rebirths, that our mind is sort of primary, we should think that we want to avoid any kind of non-virtue and engage in positive actions in order to gain a rebirth as a human or a god. But thinking even beyond that, one should cultivate attitudes like love and compassion, selflessness, and so forth, in order to be able to attain liberation, and expanding even beyond that, thinking that I want to be able to attain the state of perfect, complete enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. We should set our motivation for listening to these teachings.
당연히 그것이 돼. 설리장변도래 다들 양자라 먹고 제시는 먹으로서 단딜레디와 오늘 좀 된데 네세더라. 오늘 좀 된데 네세 차단다 몽바 용수세데세 란든 표성 조방가 왜나세 땡중그 추라 땡중그 추소라 마마부치시 송시나세 되는 돌레세 산재 좀 된데 따제 치료 못해 박은데서 달래께와다 샹래께와 규밀래께와 지대 제바부 원줄라 속배 제바다 대주 말에서 땡진 레버는 좋아래서 마부송으로와 어떻게 가르치는 송교래서 요라 당가라주 레치는 밀에 퍼져들이야 차단하게 와게 퍼져들 쨋바체 그 말에서 제 송교소를 짓고 요르도 그런 지대 배서밖에 안 나시 어떤 데 말에서 가르치는 송교래서 산재 좀 된데 고란 상계사를 소선 대바 주에 담면데 버세야 그요 말에서 네 진짜 된데 꼴이야 현진 뒤에서 말은 데레데레서 마부송에 가르치는 송교래서 이거라 마음마부서 때 주다 강가 현대 강가 좀 된데 배병원도 연계게 니가가 주다도 좀 뒤에서 강가 디마르데레 소로와 어디 송교에 된다 가르해서 이거라 좀 된데 차단다 몽바 용수에서레스 란데 표선 잡아 좀네 랑게 된다 죽고 약해요 말에서 네 땡중 최소란 직대게 뉴시긴 직대 주에 그 최소야 아니 텐데 다기 말에 샹기 말이니까 좀 있겨 말에 원주그 제 말했는데 망부 가르치는 송바래서 나서라 뒤규센시에 ordno 뒤 차단다 좀 좀 된데 랑이 된다를 주에 나한테 원도 전에 송구요 말해줘라 네 심장에 봐 시베 송을 쥐질럼 단도데 말아서 돌래 시베 송을 쥐질럼 괜히 계좌 남라 대세 디신식 받던 바데 계좌 남지 자고서 시바 코하게 동에데 간데서 연구요 바데 공부 제주 전에 아니 양다고 봐 챙겨와라 디켄도서 시바 코하 계시게 대외 교단 동에기 교단 타르와 토외 교단 어때서 된대셔버데 말에세 이게로아 된대레세 양다바데 봐 거의 동에 심제 망보시게 대화 토외다 동에세게 랑도르게 내데 야고치 지다와신도 신에 된다리야 아니 양다바 캠바선자데 토기 마스네 제가 꾸네라는 바송고요 레세 된다라 시베 송고 쥐제람 년이 계좌 남라데세 산제랑이 손도나래 시버코하고 동해 주지 람가등게 견줄 때여세 대신시바가 랭게데 가르스네 대신시바가 견줄 강가 약보스네 소토비에다 두부 강가 매버서 차게 파 매버서야다 텐데시네 라완도 제가 말해서 거라 대신시바 덤바데서 동해기 교대에서 대외 교대에서 내 양다바 신기요데 소소 냠녀도 결혼을 시기요 선거라 대 교대 결혼서 빠 대와요 교대 쪽 동해요 교대 파빠 텔레 조바이나 소소가 대와 도구를 동해에 저 연구대 선거라 디신시 발랭게데 덤바보래 랑도르디 내 지신도 덤바보 노래데 노래레 스테 마른 데레스 송야데레 산제지데 이카면 쳔베 거바데레 데어노 어따데 제 조데 소소 제거를 마도 제바볼로 파 현다지가 지구를 삼텐데 삼비오 말레스 소소 조데 돈다 레 조레스나다 셈 조레스나다 소소 조레스 데고고라 현다지가 지구를 삼라와전을 로케이션 징게지요 나던데라 현다 발로케이션을 레라우라 Jana Cheshiro Chis, Tabari saw Tabuna Kardan, Shashan did it, and young to a Yomarno. So I'm one of the Taburi, the Tedangam the social like a Chegu Yardo. Or this on the Sibes on which Many Kejanam like that, Tishin, but then but the Kejanam the Chago. So Chago Resongora. Sanje Capsu Chevos, Sanje Captain Baba Naronas, Tungele Shive Tap, Tarwa Tobe Tap. Yang dang be dewa yong tab da kange men ju tab thatu gi dewa thoya da negab gi dewa thoya ge tab do so ro na se rawa chi yora ka re se nga zo mission ba so da o de chi ma chi chi ma so yo de ka na zo la ba na shi tru gu re se de ne ra ni dewa thob to re tu nge de se to gu re se de song go ra o ji den che ba bo ka ye ge zo de ju re da so zo yin ba de 다게 조 다게 계시 지시들을 조 소소래 소소게 삽소전에 소소게 야부용 그래 소소 삽소 맞아 소소만 동도라 现在就我们现在就要买的刚个接通关就那的投资啊应该讲的也不讲数了都不收买得到我也弟兄
So here, picking up in the text, and I don't think we need to review anything, but we will begin with on page 35. It says, the Blessed One eliminated attachment, hostility, and ignorance, and brought his own aims to perfection. Why did he teach the truth of dependent arising so often? So here, it's not as though, again, when the Buddha taught dependent arising, this is refuting any kind of the sort of extremes of production, of being self-arisen or arisen from another, from both or from neither. And it's not out of a sort of worldly wish to dispute, like the way that we might, when we have an issue with somebody, we want to pick a fight or something like that. But it's not as though the Blessed One, the Buddha, has an interest in worldly dispute. And it's also not as though the Buddha has anything yet to be abandoned or eliminated. He has eliminated fully attachment, hostility, and ignorance. And there's nothing left to accomplish. He has brought his own aims to perfection. So there's no need to get this. It's not said in order to just dispute with others. It's not said for his own purposes, but rather the sort of reason for the Buddha teaching dependent arising in order to eliminate, again, that the environment and the beings within it are arisen from sort of self-arisen, are arisen from another, are arisen from both, or are arisen from neither of those. Again, this is because the Buddha knows all phenomena directly, and based upon this knowledge has unerring knowledge of what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. And so here, it's in order that these other beings, those beings who are experiencing the sufferings of samsara, might know these points, might know what it is that we should adopt and what it is that we should abandon without any kind of error or deception. This is the reason why the Buddha teaches dependent origination so often. Again, the Buddha is teaching us the sort of methods by which we are able to achieve our own happiness. He's telling us from experience that based upon cultivating certain causes, one can sort of bring everything good to its culmination, and everything that is negative can be eliminated through the proper kinds of antidotes. And so here, this the Buddha's knowledge, as is explained in the quotation that follows, from the collection of aphorisms, it states, I taught all of you the path that eliminates the suffering of existence. The Tathagata gives teachings, you must put them into action. So here, again, it is based upon the Buddha's own knowledge, this complete unerring kind of knowledge, that the Buddha is then able to teach this to others. This is the reason for the Buddha's coming into the world, is in order to be able to give this to others. We can sort of make prayers to the Buddhas, but we can't expect them to do this for us. We are the sort of primary, are of primary importance. The individual, their own mind, and the kind of karma that we create is really the main cause, the main creator of our happiness and suffering. If there were someone who could do it for us, some sort of being that were in the nature of love and so forth, they would eliminate their suffering our suffering if they had the capacity to do so. But we can make prayers to the three jewels, yet we have to do it ourselves. The Buddha teaches the kind of methods that will lead us to being able to eliminate our sort of temporary sufferings, as well as being able to achieve that kind of ultimate lasting happiness. If we don't know, there's no way that we can do this. So the Buddha's purpose in teaching this, again, it's not in order to benefit himself or to just dispute with others, but rather the reason for refuting a creator is to place the primary onus on the individual that we have to do for ourselves. The Buddha is able to teach these things, but again, as he has said, you are your own master, you are your own protector. It is up to the individual, the person, to be able to get rid of their suffering or to achieve their happiness. No other sort of, the Buddha is of a compassionate nature, but he doesn't have the ability to just take away our suffering.
Oh yeah. She sung bada tumba rani la pemba da me pemba da segdo. Social pendo to pendo yobada pendo meba tendresha ne ke sung yo mares. Rangin doba tobia da me doba passe social keben tandala sung ba mares ro. Tende sung ye de segdo. Chagdang ke on ke tanda sung ba mares ro la. Mene to membe je tende tanda ke yene sung yo mares tende ko la ma bu sung ye de. Shanda di mare di rese suede. We ne zu chi da wa shin do shin ye da. Dong ji ju ngo ne kan yin ba da. De wa to ji ju ngo ne kan yin ba de wa di ya wu che. Shen ge ha ko ye tan da le shen le tu ze ko ne sung yo de si go ra. De me ja se. Dong ba ran yin yin ren ne ro la tu ji dang ni do. Kyur wa le. Dong ba chom den de dang bu tu ji du ne. Sim je tam je ko dong le cha wa cha. De wa tam je dan bar cha sam. 투게 로찬 주초도 셈게 cham바다 니지로 곰곰곰네 네 단다 타르신사데 네 로아 남제 랑도르 네라 친줄로도 짐바디 바 세네 친줄로도 삼로 농주디로 대화 토비에 나 동에 매버소야 그 삼로 농주디 바 세네 양다바 대화 토비 주 양다바다 하고야 동에서야 주 양다바다 하고야 전달이 안에 최소가 됐어요 중간에 제다 가르소래. 랑도 제네라 친줄로도 좀 바세네세. 펜바르시베 대다르 송시서 어디에서네 송바레세. 대다르 펜반제 그바 인데스고라. 네 고아당년을 지발에 덤바라니 타르심바티 단달 투기 단다 타르심바레. 로아 남제장 덤발이야 랑도르니 지신 덤베가 라와치기와레 대선자 뒤제대다게 라공에치도 송기와레세. 고아당년을 지발에 타반 되지 응도 내래 단도 내래 론덴 도마시스 교망보시스 좀 된데라 캡수 로아 임베스 캡든 바보 나로 나스체 메송기 동엘레 트지 캡 고에 동엘레 트지 캡 로아 시제 지바당 녀무베 지발레 트지 캡 저로 나스야 라와치요레 티소자 송기요레스베라 캡슨 로아 임베스 Tenaten beja, roa tenam, kyobar jago ba yense. O tibato chishanya.
So the teacher had the purpose neither to benefit or not benefit himself, nor to attain or eliminate something for himself. So again, the Buddha has already perfected his own aims. And so it's not out of a sense of self-benefit that he is teaching this, nor to not benefit himself, but rather he long ago acquired a compassionate nature for all beings. So it is out of this desire, this compassion for sentient beings that the Buddha strove to find what is the cause of suffering, what is the cause of happiness, to be able to teach to others the kind of causes that lead to their happiness and suffering. So Out of compassion, he intended to clear away all beings' misconceptions of what to adopt and what to discard. So here again, the Buddha is in the nature of compassion, developing that kind of compassion more and more and more until it is to its fullest sort of culmination. And out of that, he then taught the Dharma in order to help others eliminate their own misconceptions and know what it is that they should adopt. And so he has perfected his own aims, but doing so then leads him to teach others. Therefore, he taught dependent arising. His providing this help also served a purpose. Many people who desired freedom from the fear of the miserable rebirths and cyclic existence, and many intelligent people intent on higher birth and definite goodness had gone for refuge to the Blessed One. So those who are looking to free themselves from the sufferings of the lower realms, or free themselves from the sufferings of samsara, free themselves from the sufferings of the afflictive obscurations and those obscurations to omniscience, they look to the Buddha. They've gone for refuge to the Buddha, knowing that he has this kind of unerring knowledge of what is to be adopted and what is to be discarded. And so this is what protection means. Going for refuge to the Blessed One means knowing that he has those kinds of unerring advice as far as how to achieve one's own happiness and eliminate one's own suffering.
Oh yeah. Tene tedar kyobe gyude karesena. Nuju so ki nuju so la chinji loge londone ne da ne jinji den da semjen jinji den tuzu ne yaga da duga tuzu keje ki gyudo tulya chinji lo do shembade nonju ki samlu de pan da ne sungura chinji malo go lo kebar zeba tinyi yen la se tanda ko ne da chu je da legba tobje ki gyu kayen ba ngemba tobje ki gyu karin ba tipang ko ba o tipa lang dur tan ban zeba te ese kebe tanda lo kebar zeba tinyi yin shin se lo chinji malo ba ya kidi je le lo chinji malo ba kandis ke go resena lo chinji malo ba ya kidi je le na tidu gen debu dewa tu kewa chenen debu dewa to ba ta kyu me kewa chenen debu tungye to be o ti kewa na tewen dewa tungye da me kewa da tungye yin dewa to zo ya bu ji shen pa chene ni tikwa pa kewa tu be che du che song ge wa de se wa la tidu gen debu dewa chita wa shen do she ne yi che ba da so len de le to da le kyum de ge le do le yi che ba ni kansa da cho la len de la yi che ba che ne nge song gu tung pa la da me ko ba to ba che ro ni cho da kansa ge da me ba le so ba chak da la so ba nyu mo to zu pa pa ni thar ba to ba tung le ten do thar ba ko we tung le ten do thar ba tam je ge re so ra kansa da cho la da me ba to ba de da yin shin se de ne so te zo tong da le nge song ge tung pa ne ten do la me ko ba to ba le kyum de gi nam sha dia bu chi shen ku yo re o tene tarba to ba le ya te teng do ne kansa da me de che ge da me to ne chak dang ge sam lo pa ku yo re ta cho la cha wa shen cho la ta wa ro ba nga je cha do la so ba de zo pa pa ku tene tarba to gu yo no te da yin shin de ne te zo me ba so de karil te ne ha ko do res ne ten jin de ba ju me chu chin ji ma lo ba ten be sung ra la san je ge ten jin de ba ju me chu ten je yang la chung ni le so be ko ne ngon du la me ko ban tu de nge song ke wa ka chi she ge no tarba to ye chu she ge no o te zo ya bu ji shin ba chen so tene ten jin de ba ju me chu chin ji ma lo ba ten be se chin ji ma lo ba ten be sung ra la so te ba che pa she ne ko zu te chu sam lu ta ne ha ko ne ne ya ne ya do ko ba che de la lang dur chu shin do che le ju pa che go le sung ga ra o tene ka se samba da ko ba rim jin chung go ba shi yin se o tene te ba samba ko ba che ne ya da be te ngon du la me ko ba top che da thar ba top che san je ko ba top che la so ba kyu san je ke kem ba de ma sung yo re de le gan zu te ba che te sam lu ta ta ne pa sha go zu ne rim ge ke wa ka le kem ne te de chi gi ya sam sa yu rim gu sam lu ta sam lu ka chen bu ta chen de che bu zo dong ge de sam lu ta gi yo ma te sam lu ta na ane san je ko wa to ba cha chi chi ge se sam lu ka chen bu yo to ma no susu ludi kewa chendruarum semde kyunrini dande tere de yordo o di samdane ku yordo ya tipo de chiguna.
So, the teacher needed to protect these beings, and that which brings about this protection is ending the states of mind that are mistaken as to the causes of beings, their environment, and so forth, and generating unmistaken states of mind. So, here, when it comes to then the way in which the Buddha, the teacher, protects beings, it is by creating or helping them to generate the kind of unmistaken minds, knowing things correctly and getting rid of those kinds of mistaken states of mind. And in particular, it's getting at, well, what are the causes of good results, of happiness? What are the causes of suffering? And so first, these correct states of mind are precisely knowing the connection between virtuous and non-virtuous karmic actions and their effects of happiness and suffering, and then having conviction in that connection. So when we know the connection between the kind of causes that lead to, for example, a higher rebirth, the kind of causes that will lead us to suffer, we can then make an effort to try to get rid of the sort of causes that will lead to, for example, a lower rebirth. So that sort of confidence is then necessary, having conviction in that connection. And then it continues, as well as knowing the selflessness of persons and objects. And so here, the kind of mistaken minds, for the first type of mistaken mind would be not understanding karma, cause and effect, and sort of knowing the connection between particular causes and their results. And then there is the kind of lack of knowledge or wrong, sort of mistaken minds with respect to the selflessness of persons and objects. So we need to understand this sort of process of grasping at a self and the kind of attachment and aversion that comes from that, those sorts of mistaken minds and how they arise. And the Buddha, through his teachings, gives us the kind of knowledge that are unmistaken states of mind. And so it is from the Buddha's teachings that we are then able to, over the course of many lifetimes, develop this kind of knowledge. So first we hear the various teachings, and then we contemplate. By hearing, we are laying down kind of imprints on our continuum that will then allow us to continue to contemplate and meditate on these things until, after many lifetimes, we are able to achieve the state of Buddhahood. If we are only really thinking about just this life, and we say things like, oh, I want to become a Buddha for all sentient beings, that's not really possible. We have to have a long-term kind of commitment, a vast sort of intention, and that involves thinking about not just this life, but the kind of causes that we are creating many lifetimes into the future to eventually be able to achieve that state of Buddhahood. So this necessarily arises gradually from study, reflection, and meditation on the teacher's scriptures, which reveal the unmistaken truth of dependent arising.
Oh yeah. Don't do not do some do us do long jang do sanje. Oh long do ne ka tengurusna. The dorian do less. Chum den de kilo ta de la le yedos or le sambudan membasane. Tin jebu dewa da tunge ti jong yores le jung de nam sha song do. Chum den de kilo da de la le yedos. Jebu yedos le sange sakwa yore telen jebu ti dun jong yores ora. Kan chusu tarta ba mado ba kan chusu tarta ba na le kide ni la tene ene jebu kyo len chu de yona din jong de ke beshen de ke tenje yan la chung ni le sogbe ko ne kwa kurzu song yordo o tezo chusu tarta ba mado ba tenje yan la chung ni ko ne kwa kurzu song ba de chusu tarta ba de yona din jong de ke beshen de ke kan de marbe ta la nga zu ma bu she sa so ken som le chung ta ken nga le chung set o tension de di ko ne kwa ko ta she yordo 추수 달다고 마도 뭐 풍부디 도시 풍부시 녀와 렘베 시바 보내 미미소스 텐데 양라 중위권의 과학고주다 텐데 시원데 텔이야 다 저랭겐게 다 라오에 다 텐데 요 말에 와 Ani ya sambuda ngembala tongenge chebabu ta rawache shenda tende yoba mare songora. Gyudan ken tende yana chungi le soba tende gyudan ken gyuange korwa kyo sange do kora mado. Rwa kongenge da rawa yo mare korchungenge da rawa shenda je korchunge yo mare so titandar. Choso tarda wa mado ba pumbu di dorshe pumbu shen nyawar lembe cheba bone mimi sose. Choso tarda wa se de karesna dita den di yona din jonse. Tende yana chungi salu jambe dego songudwa. Kyudan ken debu kare yena kyudan ken debu tedan te keshi ki timu mayimbe nyelengi kyudan. Te ken de sosona ani debu de yongu rese. Telen debu de ke goyo samsa da meche goyo samsa shenda ga samlo tangwa da. Kyudan ken koran su kyudan ngen keba yin samba da. Debu de nga teki ke so samsa tende kulung yoma yole tagi ma rese. Kyudan ken ki neba yonsu sosona. Koyaga nipa de cha cha suna ne rebu ke je pare. Tele shenda ke kuyo da ke me kuyo samne ke pa dra yo ma re song ora. Yo me be kyale tene se te ngo ba che ba be kulong ki samlo ke ko ma re se. Kyujin ki nipa cha ma cha le tene rebu ki gre se. Di yo nan din chung se. Di ke be se di ke se. Kyu takba le tene rebu ke yo ma re. Kyu koran de ke ora. Mang cha chi kyu tangbu kyu di takba chi shakdwa. Chukta shendawi. Tambu kyudi takpa shati anjali kyu shanani, tambu di gochu se mengeri si chagiwara. Nangpa chani tambu gochu e yo maru, kowa la tome ta yo marwa. Toma kani chunga dine chunga ditali yo maru se yo maru. Zambulin dindabi chini ko tambu kadi shari, tama kadi tonguri se di yordo. Chidan zambulin da simjingi jiten le chame warwa. Chidi toma shaya ke ko maru. Kyudan kien kyuba le chani toma meba na tuusi yondere. Tome tako mare, tama yore. Marazu sabso chene koala tanduwa, toma yo mare, toma meja tama tang denpa chera. Meba soya yora, kyujin di kana. Tambu te yongya di tambu di nesho di tali yo mare, si yo mare. Jiden cheba buru jine tambu ko, kyudan kien kanya chemu rang jungi tindi chubare chera. Rohane, jiden kam de rang shingi, kyu takpa chile chubare, ti shegi yo mare. Kyu tinya midakwa res. Midakwa tume kien la tene chungur mado, kyu takwa la tene chunga yo mare shegi. Dikke besin dikke sede. Kyu koran de kyu tan kien ki kieba re, tene drebu di kieg res. Kyu koran kyu tan kien ki kiesan kon gyura yonge chile toran, gyura yone drebu kie tura. Kyu koran takwa yene gyua menge zinu ko dos de degri mado, drebu kieva da me kieve tanya ke yongu mardo. Ni kawala sa. Chusu tartawa di nan din chun di kebe sin di ki bitawa tume ken le chua tengi bate. Kandi marik be ken jin duje sidu nive ken le teni kiwa. Timu mayin ba nyelengi kyuchi, niva yongen kyuchi ta, tele chua chen ken lenchi chi ken kore ese. Tende yana chun tome marik pala yo na, ni nivan tuji le saati yungure, ti yo na sumba namshi le ki niva le, ni tende yana chun dus kwa kurkure ese. Kandi marik be kenji duji kenji nambar sheba sidu timu mayimba rangna keche ki nyelengi kyu da lenji chi ken timu mayimba nipa yobe kyu shikora kyu tsangme drebu tsangma kiga mardo soso timu mayimba keche shingdo richi na ko ami na kushu na kari na medo richi na soso timu mayimba suyan diga timu mayimba drebu di kiga mardo kyu chi kin drebu kanga kiga marwa so nive kyan la tene kiawa sikura. Timu mayimbe nipa yonge kyuta tele ya kyangi chochene eni kia kura mato. Kyuchi ki kanga drebu kanga kia tende yuwa mare sungara. Kyan sumle tene chunga asitira. Tika la eni kyuta cheba le chunga tsenyis che. Rwa. Takbo mebe kyan le chunga tsenyis che nyi chana nga ren rura. Kyuta cheba se kyu yoni kigir mato kyu meni kigir mara kyang bengi sheba na shi kyu meni kia yuwa mara. Kyudan chebali chunga tsenyisha. Takpo mebe kyali tene chunga. Rangwa we takpo chengeshi kwa mare. Kyudan kengi nipa di zo suna ko kigiri mado. Kola rangwa we takpo chi Malik Sira, Jaga Kitchen Malik Sira. Tabu. Rawe Tabu Chenge, Kemaji Kanga, Lakwali Tengishi, Jidan Shebabunda to Sudo. Or Tabu may be candidate. Sula Rawa Chenge, Wongur Chengichi Omaris. Oh, teacher Kengali Chwadi Shegora. Yeah, teaching.
So here then, as for the points that are to be adopted and abandoned, again, based upon the kind of knowledge of the Buddha, he teaches these points that are to be adopted and abandoned. And here, the sutra states, the Blessed One said, "O monks, it is the case that both karma and effects exist. We only impute terms to phenomena." So based upon that kind of imputation, we can designate things as karma based upon the kind of 12 links. First, you have ignorance, and then conditioning factors and consciousness and so forth. But there's no sort of autonomously existing agent. No agent that discards these aggregates and then appropriates other aggregates can be seen. The phrase imputing terms to phenomena means that once this exists, this arises. So here it is the case that when it comes to something like the 12 links of dependent origination, there's no sort of, permanent kind of a cause. There is, we will get back into these sorts of conditions of the particular kind of causes. When it comes to the cause of samsara, it can't be posited as like some schools would say that there's some sort of a permanent kind of unarisen cause that leads to some again sorry. So just to finish out this quotation, it says again that so there is no sort of it is the case that both karma and effects exist. We only impute terms to phenomena, and there is no sort of autonomous agent or self that discards these aggregates and then appropriates other aggregates. There's none like that who can be seen. So here, when it comes to the sort of being that is cycling within samsara, there is no particular like autonomous agent that is the one who engages in samsara or is able to turn away from samsara, but rather again, this is a process in which everything is imputed by terms. We only impute terms to phenomena. That's the level of its existence. So when it comes to then thinking about the sort of cause of samsara, this again is not, it is asserted that it cannot be a permanent sort of a cause. And it's also, it needs to be a cause that is appropriate. It has the appropriate kind of capacity to bring about that particular result. It also does not need to be a cause that has some kind of an intention or a will, a motivation of like a deity or something else. It's not as though a result needs to come about based upon a particular intention of someone. Rather, if all of the causes and conditions are present, that is all that is necessary or sufficient for the result to come about. You don't need the will of a creator deity, and there also cannot be a kind of original cause that is something sort of permanent. Again, Buddhists, according to Buddhists, this world is beginningless. We can't posit some sort of original cause, original beginning. Again, those sorts of schools that would seek to assert like sort of a permanent original cause, there are certain sort of logical fallacies that would arise from that. But for Buddhists, we would say that there is no beginning. We can't posit an original cause. And in general, there's no sort of way to posit an end. Although for an individual, we can talk about the ending, the elimination of their particular afflictions, they're cultivating certain qualities, being able to sort of end samsara for them. But there isn't, again, when we get into the sort of characteristics of the causes, there isn't a permanent cause. There isn't like an original self-arisen cause. The cause itself is arisen from causes and conditions. So we can't speak of something being caused unless it itself is able to, it itself was brought about by other causes and conditions. Something can't act as a cause, can't bring forth results unless it too was brought about through a causal process. So again, when it comes to the kind of like, for example, the 12 links of dependent origination, first you have ignorance, and then that creates conditioning factors that then leave imprints on consciousness and so forth. And so when it comes to this kind of process, there's no will of another, there's no autonomous cause in terms of like an autonomous agent or actor, but rather when all of the causes and conditions come about, then that particular cause will, that particular result will arise. And it needs to be a cause that is the proper sort of material cause, substantial cause, for the result that it is bringing about. So something like a mango or an apple or a flower or whatever it is, each of those has its own particular cause. There isn't a there are common conditions that lead to that, but it needs to be the cause that actually has the ability to bring about a particular result. And then it also is not the case that such a cause has a sort of like autonomy to it. This kind of ability to bring forth from itself, having this kind of like not needing to rely upon anything else, but having that kind of autonomy, that also is not possible in terms of the nature of a cause.
Oh yeah. The Daratan Bess, Rotten Basanja Chumdene, Tuji dance to them, Roasim Jen and Yiri Meba, Tungeda Tranduji Tuji down. The Altom Duji Chambe, Simlatin, Chambada, Zawagi, Tuji dance. Yanda be Kimba Niji tablet and Esse, Landur Ginero, Nandula Mikova Tobjeta, Nili Tarwa the Tamji Kimba Tobjek, Kukayimba, Yanda Ba. Yanda be Landur Gine, Yanda by Kimba Niji tablet and Esse, Tabda Shira Tarchimba, Tapshi Rani Tapshi Tarchimba, or Teletan Esse. Dujanam la tension reverential to Rawando Temper Zenes. Dujanam la tension reverential Cone, and then Koa Kozuda, tension reverential Yimbe, Rawando to the Tomba Race, or Tendesum, but the Rawangi Cone Temper Zever, Rangi Musum to Kenji Sin and Sumbasons Rawando Tembas. Shandaji Sigisaro, Ya Chiruba, Tenju, give you Macheva, Richie Samashila Soba. Dezunale Sunsha, Shaggy Use, Tender Mares, Ramado Timbaza, Rani changes signet Timbazavarese, Musum to say she Kimber Zen Timbu Armado, Tender Mendo Sera, Tender Shuna, Sheshas and Shaggy Sigis and Tender Mares, or Ramado Timbazavas, Rangi Musum to change signet somebody set on that. Tension Revenue to Ramado Timbazava in Besse. So tension temperature to round to temperature, then the Yana Juni Kone Kwa Kursu, Tameba Toba Kone Kwando Su, Rawa. And the Sanje Yukoban Tobala Top Kevers and Chanju Sembi Simbekone, oh, Tende Komkaba Tazukanga Yungordo. Jumden Dene Troa Danyan the Yanda Bay kept Temba Potase, Yanda Bay kept Tembabo, Manoro, Chinjimalopa, Temba Boda. Temba Mawa Namjana, Tamba the Chotu Juvenus. Temba Mawa Shandaki, Tajida, Shangida, Nigada, Kumile Kavala Soba, or Tender Mawa, Tender Maimba. Tedale Shambe, Tension Jabra Jovecone, Nikewada, Koa Kursuta. Tension Jabra Jove Tuto Cone, Koa and Toksu, La Soba, or to Rawan to Temba Zavaimbe. Temba Mawa Shangi, Masumbe. Yanda be choosing Basonza, then Bama was Shelley, Tambada Choti Juba in North. Yeah, teach to them.
So then, relying on the method of both compassion and correct knowledge, the teacher explained to his disciples the truth of dependent arising through his own power without relying on others. So here, the Buddha, first having being in the nature of compassion himself, not having any sort of closeness to some and distance from others, but rather teaches without any kind of discrimination the ways in which we are able to gain higher rebirths and the definite goodness of liberation and omniscience. So he explained to his disciples the truth of dependent arising, which contains the methods for then being able to attain those kinds of states, attain a higher rebirth or liberation, or even the state of Buddhahood. And so here the Buddha did this in a way where through his own power without relying upon others. And here, this means that based upon his own direct knowledge, the kind of direct knowledge that the Buddha cultivated through meditation, he was able to see this directly and thus explain without any kind of mistake the methods of gaining higher rebirth and definite goodness to others. And so it's not the sort of like claims that some schools make that they have sort of self-arisen texts that are naturally valid, or that have the Buddha is not calling on some kind of authority like that, saying like, well, I saw this in this scripture, or it was said this way by someone else, but rather how to gain this kind of freedom is something that the Buddha knows through his own experience, and thereby is able to teach that unmistakably. So the Blessed One, therefore the Blessed One is a genuine teacher, a refuge for those intent on freedom, and is the excellent and supreme speaker. So the Buddha teaches the methods by which to gain, if one wants a higher rebirth, or by the kind of unmistaken method by which one can gain the definite goodness of liberation, or how holding with bodhicitta one is able to attain the state of full and complete enlightenment of Buddhahood. And this is by teaching that all phenomena are dependently originated. They are not arisen, arisen from some kind of other, not from both self and other, or causelessly. And so thereby the Buddha then teaches the sort of dependent arising, how it is that we engage in samsara and are stuck in this cycle, as well as how it is that we reverse, how we get out of that kind of cycle based upon the sort of teachings of dependent origination. So the Buddha is a genuine teacher in that his teachings are unmistaken, and is an excellent and supreme teacher, not sort of relying upon others or looking to some other source of authority.
Oh yeah. Ande jigden goba bo yebe tupchi sti kol shegdwa. Jigden cheba bo yeba tsuzoge yebe tupchi chi yora kyusen de sonza yore samgwe samlo koyega kyudan kenchi yora oti she yora. Jigden goba bo yebe tupchi se. Shende zogun jigden goba bo yeba de tupchi de she yora oti tsuku yora de. Shende jigden goba bo de banga shi gen de tarmade se. 다 자갈이나 원주발로 소바로 상바다 근데 제바부 마요르도 셴데 지된 거바 본데 방가 시긴데 더마데 베나세 진베 공부다 공부 성게르치네 다바게 공부 시고 공부 성게르치네 고 소비에게 년랭기 주로 진바다 아니 제라 이구다 슈슈에 락자로 tin데다 쿠바다 락자 만부 연구로 제주 강가 여바 이나야 쓰고라 그바서 공부서에 차게 남소의 여장세 공부서에 교년린다 레지치게 도바 여바 신다 강가 여나야 성경이 가사데 매나 쓰고라 아니 교제 강가 여나 코랑도 코랑 공부 차그면 도와세 시고 공부 성경이 나다 가요 공부 쓰고 나다 다바 공부 쓰고 나다 그 교제 강가 차데 여나야 성경이 기부시 매네 연구면 도와서거라. 심dengi 기부 심dengi 자케다 트레스 자마 성경이네 심단된베 자케 자마 성경이 본반들이 소고사니 신의 교제도 배주제 속으로와 자케다 트레스 짐바 본바라 자케 매네 짐바스의 교강가 차데 요나야 교단 개도 가시 차데 요나야 랑줍도 미주한테 코란 분벌에 좀 도와서거라. 지금 삼루당시 지송게서 그거 도와서거라. 어디나시 내다 류서 이제 추다 추 많이 받아. 어디다 찍버려서 주중 강바다 분바다 지도도 라면다 입 라면다 진짜 써야 돼. 강사직 삼루당에 속으로 마도 연구면 도와서거라. 규진 연나 팽기면 도와서. 디나시 너진 직된 뒤다 추기 심전 라면다 데서 강가 용해야 돼. 주단 전시 여바 삼기 되게 말해. 송겐기 꾸는 셈병겐기 제바버지 셈den기 제바버지 거래서 계속 전부리 전부 대단 들리는 심전 라면다 데서 강가 송게데 또 전부지 내가 전부 연계시 거래서 어디가 써야지 제소고래서 그래서 강바다 분부터서 송게매는 못해서 송게 가사지 매는 연구면 도와서 랑룹전에 연구면 도와티나 시리에서 규정구요라 자기다 제외 짐바 분부를 랑룹도 매주와 코란 분부를 좀마로 와서 티나시 지대진에 전부린다 류면다 미다 또도 담면다 이거부터 쓰거라 내가 류서 규초다 최 많이 받아서 뒤텔라 속바 차야서 교계와다 미계와서야다 그 규지 풍부급식이 뒤에 사주멜롱 중하다 밤에 구달로서 가르고 위나 대서 간가 참아이나 야시거라 뒤텔라 속바 차야 대단해 셰바 셈메바임바 그래서 셰바 메바라바 셈메바라 계속다 코라랑 룹도 뒤 자와치신 말이시거라 임베 랑 진기 로바부 셈단 덴바식 메바 랑이기 데부 좀바 네바 마이너 고 셈단 덴바식 뒤 속으로 뒤 소바마도 코라주랑 룹체체 야 강바레 루마르도 분바레 루마르도 제바보 셈단 덴바 제바보 네바 거래서라 내가 라와셴기 진기 로바보식 예배 때에 원주라 속반 지된 제바보식 join 라와셴기 배 네바 전부 타르신배 용게게 감제 소신배 아니 때에 가사지 고그래서 와라 지된 원주라 속바 어때저게 세바레스 규센티 고고도 야 제바도
So here, then turning next to the proof presented by other traditions for the existence of a divine creator. So here, this lays out the kind of assertions of the systems that say that we need a kind of creator of the world, some sort of divine creator. So other traditions that assert the existence of a divine creator of the world say, you might have assembled the conditions for making a clay pot, a pile of clay, a mallet, and a measuring string, but the pot will not create itself. So it needs a conscious entity, a potter. So for example, when we are making like a pot or some kind of other material thing, you can have all of the causes and conditions assembled, all of the sort of substantial cause and all of the coordinating conditions. But if you are lacking someone that has an intention, that has a mind, that being the potter who has the thought like, oh, I want to make this thing that looks like that, this pot doesn't just become a pot on its own. It's not sort of self-arisen in this way, but rather these traditions would assert that you need some kind of an intention. So we look at all of these sorts of different shaped things within the world, like pots and houses and cars and all of these things, and they need to have an intention behind them, they would say. The environment and its inhabitants, all of the sort of varieties of things, they would say need to have a kind of thought and intention that drives that, a will, in the way that something like a house or a pot or a car, they don't just assemble themselves. You have all of the causes and conditions present, but then there needs to be someone that has a mind in order to assemble those, to bring them into being. So those kinds of materials may all be there, but we have to have that kind of powerful, capable, able being who can make them, who can create them. So it says here, likewise, again, talking about the view of other traditions, although the causes of a body, a place, and so on, virtues and non-virtues, as well as physical particles, may be complete. They lack a mind or consciousness. Without a conscious entity to empower them, they are unable to create their individual effects on their own. So to empower them requires someone who is self-powered. So, such a person might have a name as like Ishvara or something like that. But here, the basic assertion is that nothing can come about without that kind of will or intention. There needs to be a sort of powerful kind of being that assembles those causes and conditions, because otherwise we could see all of the causes and conditions for, say, a clay pot sitting there, but without the potter, it won't come into being. And so too, it is regarding the sort of external world and its inhabitants.
Oh yeah. The Daria Chedules, and the Lobe Kenji Shorts or Washington Russia Nala, Yebe to the Secretary Station also go. Oh, to them. The Daria Chedules, Cemente Conan to Base. Pinal Sunshas, Shenda Kenden Quinginese, Shenda Kis Gordon, won't you ball so but Zogese. Shenda Kenden Quinginese. Jordan then Benuchu Genji Samasura. Judy Carres no one Jugi, she won't Jugi, Gunu Samlutanchi Social Resura. Tam just Soshiba Kunjin Basudo, Namjinachana. Duni one Ju in she says. Sheba maybe a Tangini, Rangi Debutson Majors, Sheba Mengangi, Tangi changing over Satan, Tenichala, Sala Sobatazu Sama. Koran Judan Kendi Yoba Yenaya, Kibuchi Mana, Songen Kibukunu Samlutangachi Mana, Koran Yak Randu to Drotu Maresora. Sheba maybe Tangini, Rangi Debuton Mechese, Rangi Debu de Sotu Maresora, Jimmy Sheba Yangachi, Samlutan Soko de Ese, Cheson Batarose, Shayasa, Oti Kuntra, Tama de Kuntra, Transati. Nambeshung and the Kenji Shwaso Jebe, Semativina, Content Sectosia, Tata. Tenishaya, Pumbata, Kangim La Soba Namne, Rani Tomjegi, Chasheki, Yib Mendawa, not so by Kebar Kebarachenda, Demba, Namnesa, Oshaya Kangbala Soba in Adarawa, Zambulin Rizawala Soba, Sola Soba, Sambula Soba, Tishina Soba Kangase. Medra, Pendra, Medra, Yordo. Oh, Tezu Yoba de Shaya, and the Pumbada Kangula Soba, Namnese, Rani Tomjeke, Chasheke, Yib Medra, not so be, Yib Cabarage and Demba, Namnese, Ransom Jiggy to Yugi Shanga, Yib Medra, Sobda Medra, Kado Medra, Yevata Kanga Sigora, and Rani Tonsan and Mitsupa Tonsamne. Oh, this song gets you. Yabuso to us some Cambodgianada, Chalandashinada, all the Yabuso to us some song gets you, but they couldn't sing a shake to us. The Chala Chuju Dozula Songaji Mana Mayona, then Zambuli Chachimbu the Reta and Yamada, and then Midas turned to the Simjan Ramadan de Zukanga, Songa de Depe Tarchimbo Top Chimbuchi Mana Sotogumare, the Sawabuchi Simda Dembachi Mana Neogumare. Tom then the Zulu Chepabochi Yore, Swap or Michi, Yabuso to us something. Oh, Tinder some court of the West Tinashi, Nujugin Chidan to Tama, Swapochi, but the Su Madame Medra, Kado Medra, Ye Medra, Chaw Medra Medra Shanga, to Sukanga, Songa, won't you buy Takai, no one you Basido, won't you Chambola Soba, Tinder, Chepabochi or take servers, she took with those cigar. Chidengi Nelula Sobaya, Yimada, not so. Even Ramada, Chidengi Ne, Sigara, the Bully Koran Sigara. Yeah, Lewis no Kansa, Lewis Ramada, Tandudan Medachi Ramada Mambuya to the Sugara. Not so by Keber than them by Cheba below you are Mondo. Don Cheba Trubo Osha, or to do somebody. Cheba Boji, and so shall I embodish, took to go to us. Pena Pumbada Kangba, La Soba Shino Speco Yara. 대다리안 제들레스 그 세면 제들나랴 근지 시와주고 송샤서라 디가레스나 랑좀 제베 양라게세 아니 입지 제베르 당데 가서 랑좀 제베 양라게세 좀지 연계게 저저 강바다 봉벌을 쏘바 모달을 쏘바 저저 강가로 입지 제베르 당데가 입메다 카도메다 소샤도 통화되게세요라 Tene londe kyujesha lodo dan dembe kyu samruchi tande soba yimbate keba yimbate hako tokudo ase. Pena pumba dan kanjim sheno ose peko yore. Jitenji ne lu jitenji ne kachimbo di dan nyimanda wala soba jamsula soba ta ni simje meda miri meda simje meda deso kanga chuche seura ko soabo kansa mixechi yanchi yode chawa lodan dembe kyo soabu kansa chi yote yi mendra wa dan rangshin mendra ramendra mambu yoke chere pena pumba dan kangbala soba shino se wara she dan tingi de odi chibari kantong wa ne londen to ose yip dan demba to kantong wa samje lodo dan demba chige sebare samje shiro yonge chige sebare sam to to gudwas tina shin chigden ji ne lu lonje to zul phata de o tezu kanga songe chi yoba re san po to gudwa se gore ya te butsu.
So here then regarding this kind of assertion, quoting from Shantarakshita's The Compendium of Reality, and this is again stating the position of those of other traditions. They say, others say that the cause of all products is Ishvara, an entity that has no consciousness, cannot create its own effect. So here, when it comes to the world and its inhabitants and so forth, all of these things with the various kind of shapes and colors and so forth, they cannot be created other than from an entity that has some kind of consciousness. They need a sort of will to bring them about. So here, again, continuing this is also brought up in the Pramanavartika, but furthermore, they point out, again, speaking of the views of other traditions, pots, houses, and so on have a variety of specific shapes that are formed from the different shapes of their components. Just from seeing these, we are able to automatically understand that a conscious entity created them. Likewise, because the locales, bodies, and so on of the world come in a variety of different shapes, this proves that their creation issued from the will of a divine creator. So here, when it comes to the kind of various shaped and created things within the world, the various kinds of distinct shapes that things have, Mount Meru and the various sort of like lakes and mountains and the oceans and all of this, they would assert that this those various shapes come just from seeing that. By its very nature, they would say that you could tell that there must be a will, a kind of consciousness that caused that thing. So again, quoting from this same text by Shantarakshita, those things that feature shapes created from the shapes of their components are produced by a cause that has consciousness. This is like pictures and so forth. So whatever kind of thing exists within the world, you could have, they would say, all of the sort of causes and conditions together, but it is really the sort of will of a divine creator that brings these various things about. And for them, the kind of variety of shapes and so forth proves that they must have been created by a kind of divine creator. So here, because we're speaking about India, we say Ishvara, you know, that's who they assert. But any sort of tradition that asserts this kind of a creator God would say that all of these various things, they have their own causes and conditions, like this various locales and bodies and the kind of things that we enjoy within the world, all of these things have different shapes and so forth because they were created by something that has consciousness. And so this is their sort of way in which they prove that some sort of conscious will has to precede these various things. So whatever we see, as it continues again from the same text by Shantarakshita, just by seeing, you can tell there is a conscious entity. So for these particular schools, they would say that just by seeing the kind of varieties of shapes that we do among various items, things like pots and cars and houses and so forth, knowing that those are created by someone with a kind of consciousness, so too it must be the case for all these things and beings within the world. They must be preceded by that same kind of consciousness. There needs to have been a being that created them.
Oh,
No. So we'll stop there for today as the time is up.
Oh, yeah.
Spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of wholesome's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nirtayami. Due to this merit may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Oh, yeah. Also.
Thank you very much.
Tujana Gisela.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina, for your very clear and precise translation. And if online participants could just hold on for a moment. Losar is coming up November 21st, and that's a perfect auspicious opportunity for us to show our appreciation for Geshe-la and for Katrina's translations. So if you'd like to join in that offering, please have a look in the chat box for details. Thank you. See you next week.